My name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast bonus. There's no book reading on bonus episodes. These are interviews, rants, raves, insights, and other audio musings and conversations from past podcasts I've recorded about leadership. Because listening to me, and potentially an interesting guest from the past, talk about leadership for an hour is better than reading and trying to understand yet another business book. I probably should have done this earlier, but, I'm doing it now. We live in the midst of a great resorting of the work culture of America. Sure, the official numbers out of Washington, D.C., and the official news from the approved media outlets beats the drum that we either have recovered from the last 2 years of pandemic-based disruption or that we are on pace to recover. But look around. I mean, really look around. Who are you going to believe? Some blow-dry teleprompter reader, or the evidence you see with your own lion eyes? We are in the midst of the great resetting, a renegotiation of the hierarchical relationship between supervisors and managers and employees, upper management and everyone below them, and everyone at the bottom of the hierarchical ladder and everyone above them. And sure, you can be dismissive and say that all of this has happened before, and you can even assert that this is not a new resorting, that it just seems new to the technologically savvy, postmodern, disenchanted denizens of our quote-unquote new normal. But the one rational, unyielding structure, probably the last one if we're being intellectually honest, that has resisted the relentless, ineluctable forces of deconstruction and the destruction of meaning, at least in America, has always been the workplace. That's because fundamentally people at the individual level can't figure out a way to live without work, figure out a way to define themselves without jobs, or figure out a way to navigate the material world to gain material pleasure without the friction labor provides. Then along came a virus that no one had ever heard of before about 18 months ago, and along came the throwing off of governmental boundaries, where morality had been previously defined by how little money was spent in the public benefit, not how much. And along came the idea that the social penalties for showing a lack of resiliency were actually tyrannical by their very presence in the unstated emotional rather than practical world of work. And, not to bang the drum or to say I told you so, but I wrote a series of essays, blog posts really, between 2013 and 2016 about the shadow that was growing over the hierarchical structure of work, even then. And then I went ahead and I did something very ill-conceived. I published a book of these essays on the core theme that, about 4 years later, through absolutely no effort on my part, would be the core theme of the current resorting of the work culture of America. And now that little red book, and it was also little red, as sometimes an author can be too far ahead of the curve for his or her own good, is a little red podcast. The My Boss Doesn't Care podcast is a limited edition, bi-monthly, that's twice a month for those of you listening overseas, podcast designed to take the essays that I wrote in the book of the same name, My Boss Doesn't Care, and contextualize them further to our current time and place, as all of this current action winds up at whatever clearing at the end of this path we will all collectively arrive at. As part of the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast network, the My Boss Doesn't Care podcast will only run for about 100 episodes, and then when it's done, it's over. Now, just so that you have a preview of coming attractions, let's listen to a clip from the show right here. In 1967, Carrie Lightner changed lives. Born in 1946, Candace Lightner spent her early life in California. She went to American River College in Sacramento and later As did many women in her generation, she married Steve Leitner. The couple had 3 children, twin daughters and a son. In 1980, one of Candace's twin daughters, Carrie, was killed by a drunk driver while walking to a church carnival with a friend. Leitner, catalyzing all of her pain and trauma 4 days after her daughter's untimely death, formed an organization that you've probably heard of. She was seeking to use her trauma and her focus as a way to inspire and motivate others, but also as a way to make change. Proving not to be an ideologue, she was appointed to a national commission by a president who had also lost a daughter early in his life, and she used the bully pulpit granted to her to raise awareness and to fight for tougher laws against driving while intoxicated. In 1985, Candace Leitner left the organization she founded only 5 years earlier, but that didn't matter. She had created a movement by simply clearing out the mental, emotional, and psychological cruft surrounding her very traumatic experience. She also used her organization, her talents, and her skills to get others to clear out their cruft. Without social media, without the internet, without even a computer. Candace Leitner started Mothers Against Drunk Driving and cleared out the cruft of a nation. What's stopping you from doing the same thing at work? My name is Hassan Sorrells, and this is the My Boss Doesn't Care podcast. If you want more of that, go search on Google for the My Boss Doesn't Care podcast, a podcast from Hassan Sorrells. You can also like and subscribe, review, and share the podcast from the usual outlets: Apple iTunes, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and again, for those of you overseas, in the Ghana Network, and of course, on Deezer. By the way, rate the My Boss Doesn't Care podcast, and of course, rate this podcast, Leadership Lessons from the Great Books, after you subscribe. And I would recommend telling a friend who's about to resign their position at work to take a listen to the podcast before they make any rash decisions. And of course, if you don't want them to listen to the podcast, you can always buy the book, My Boss Doesn't Care, on Amazon.com. You know, that little red book. One more thing to note. We are in the process of developing and launching a couple of other podcast shows in the later part of the first quarter of this year and the second quarter of this year. We're doing this in order to build a network of audio content that you can share, gain insight from, and connect with at a deeper level, focused around leadership, literature, and a number of other different areas than you would through a blog post, a book, or even a snarkily written meme. So stay tuned here for more information about that project. All right, that's it for me. Follow us on all the places that you follow us. Please subscribe to Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast. Please tell your friends. Please like and share. Please also check out the HSCT website for all products and solutions. Please check out the Leading Keys website for products and solutions, our remote training services, our books, our trainings that will help you become a better leader. And watch this space for more information about our upcoming book, 12 Rules for Leaders, a foundational guide to intentional leadership, coming in April 2022. Please also go to HassanSorrells.com for more blogs and more posts about how you can be a better leader, and check out all of our YouTube channels online. Thanks, and have a great rest of your leadership day. Out.